All right, so my talk is about teaching game development to kids, essentially. I've been doing that for a few years, so my name is Frederika Edgington-Giordano. I've been teaching game making for about 2 years, a little over 2 years. I assisted and currently run, more or less, the beginner game design orbit group. And I've also assisted with some of TVGS's offsite classes, St. Rose, the libraries in the area. I've taught classes at the incubator. I teach Construct 243, very similar. Ren'py and Scratch. Those of you who don't know, Construct 2 and 3 are a game engine that doesn't require programming. It does help to have that kind of logic. It teaches that kind of logic. But adults can use that game engine as well. Ren'py is a game engine for making visual novels, so interactive fiction. And I've taught Scratch as well, which is a game creation tool created by MIT. I also organized the Global Game Jam Next, which will be happening next month as well. Second time ever. Well, that's really exciting. That's the Global Game Jam, is the game jam that occurs here in January. Global Game Jam Next is a game, the version of that aimed at kids. It happens in July. Okay, some negatives I've experienced. Now I've talked to a lot of people. I've tried to pull a lot of students into our space. We teach free classes here, so you'd think it'd be easier, but sometimes it takes a little doing, especially when something's free. Sometimes people don't feel oh, I can just go anytime, but and they can, but sometimes you forget to go under those circumstances. Things that have occurred while I was talking to parents. Girls are not always encouraged. I mean, I've run into some families. I may have been misreading the situation, but it's happened quite often, where a family with both boys and girls will be like, oh, he'd love this class. But when I get down to it, when I don't see girls disliking making games or boys liking it more. So honestly, I think everyone should be encouraged. Personally, I was sort of encouraged to get involved with computers when I was a kid. Went to computer camp when I was in elementary school. I think it helped. Self-expression is great, but sometimes kids don't fully understand what they are referencing. So we had an incident where kids are gonna have to watch the kids and make sure they're not referencing memes that are less than wholesome. But I've generally not run into that. Actually, it's very, very rare. And parents, this is actually more frequent, parents are sometimes intimidated by the material. Construct, which is what I teach most of the time, it's, anyone can learn it. It does not require programming knowledge, though that does help. So it's a little bit, bothers me a little bit when somebody's a little intimidated by it. But especially, if it's, so yeah, we teach all ages, so that's just some negatives I've encountered, but honestly, they're very vastly outweighed by the positives, which is the next slide. Thank you. Much more positive. All right, kids getting to express themselves in a new way. I have some fun stories with that. I've seen kids I saw, in one case, I taught a kid how to make a game with Construct. I believe it was Construct 2. She decided I do a normal pickup tutorial, which it's a collectathon. You collect objects. You just design your own character. It's fun. And this particular student wanted to do taxes as her collectible. I always let them pick. And then she wanted the tax. She didn't want it to collect the taxes. She wanted the taxes to chase her. Her father was very surprised by this development. I feel like she might have picked something up. Despite the fact this was not my, what I would have, picked, I still helped her design the game. And I hope it made an interesting conversation between her and her parents. She was about 11 years old. So it was interesting to see, a kid expressing themselves in in a less, maybe potentially political way. There was one kid decided she wanted to make a game about being a YouTuber. She had subscribers. She collected subscribers. So it was really cute. So I've seen all different kinds of collectibles and characters. And it's really fun to watch a kid realize that they've made a character, they put it on the screen, and they've made it move and interact with the world that they're working on. There are a large variety of students, girls, people of color, so it's really cool, actually. So when I say, it's always feels like a little bit of missed opportunity with the parents who are like, no, their son would be interested in, while their daughter's right there. It feels like a really missed opportunity. Because every kid I've ever taught has been interested in making these. They always get excited about the tutorial and being able to make their own games. Parents sometimes, now this is really fun, is when parents get involved. I actually have a student, a little girl, who comes in on Saturdays, and her father is trying to get her to organize herself, document her game as she goes along, and he's also trying to figure out how to build it so that he can also help her. Really awesome. I've had one of the most rewarding moments was actually winning. So next one is winning over skeptical kids. Sometimes you have kids who think they're too cool for making games. But one of the most fun, I was helping out one of the library classes. The teen girl was like making the game. She was a little like, okay, I'm doing this, but I'm a little too cool for it. Then she actually makes the character move on the screen and collect the objects, and despite herself, she's like, cool. Total exchange in expression and demeanor. That was kind of fun. And like I said, there's so much creativity. Kids can come up with some of the craziest stuff. Hand them a template of a game, they'll make an insanely hard game with spinning platforms. They're a little sadistic, but they really enjoy it. So yeah, a lot of smiles, a lot of enjoyment. So it's really rewarding. I really enjoy doing it. So next slide. Other things to keep in mind that I've run into: kids need help being organized. One of the things is there is this sort of attitude that kids are really smart, that they know, they're growing up with computers, but in some ways they do need help figuring out how to be organized. One of the smartest kids I've ever met, first time I met him, I found that he had like Ren'py downloaded on his computer like 5 different times because he lost track of it. So, So I do to keep in mind when you're interacting with kids, they're smart, they're comfortable with computers, but they're also not necessarily the most proficient users in all sense. They're sometimes more comfortable with touch screens. There was a very young girl who came in during one of our events here, and she just kept trying to touch the screen to get it to do things. And she was very confused by why it wouldn't work. Using a mouse was kind of foreign to her. And yeah, don't let an aloof demeanor fool you, like that teen girl there. Always be flexible in presenting the material. So sometimes I do a tutorial, sometimes I give them the templates and let them go nuts. But yeah, just sometimes, depending on the kids, sometimes they just want to jump right in, sometimes they want to learn from the ground up. So right, that was my experience. And next. So if you want to teach game design, you can email me. There's quite a few opportunities. We get people reaching out to us a lot. We're also working on doing our own on-site programs. Also some things within collaboration with the Thinkubator. So let me know if you're interested.
How long does it take to build those?
Well, how long did it take to get the kids to build the games? Well, it takes about an hour and a half to get through the tutorial I do. So if we do the tutorial, that's about how long it takes to get started. From there, I kind of encourage them to either personalize it further, like add more game mechanics, more art, more layers. But it depends on the game. Sometimes things get more complicated. That young girl I was talking about with her father, she has a game that's going to take a few weeks to get through, and it's really exciting. It's really cool. It's a really fun game that she's come up with.
So they continue on their own time. It's not entirely like in a teaching situation.
Well, we invite people to come back if they've gone to the initial tutorial. So I wish we had more people do that actually, but a lot of times they'll go for the tutorial and then they'll be like, okay, I got this. But sometimes people come back and actually build a game and go pretty far. Thanks. Yep, Taro. How do we get more girls?
Yes. How do you get more girls and underrepresented minorities into the game industry, especially when, our current, obviously a lot of our games are targeted towards white, male, probably adults.
Well, I think part of it is we include series, game jam series, so that's for to invite people of color, and we've had girls come in for those. I think it's just making sure that the space is very welcoming and just encouraging them. Sometimes they're not as comfortable for various reasons with computers, and just being patient and helping them a little bit more sometimes is necessary. Generally, if somebody is uncomfortable with a computer, I will give them more help, and just in general. But just being patient and just making it very clear that they are welcome, and doing everything you can to make them feel welcome. Yes.
How do you? So I know that programming and like the whole AI generation thing, and the whole making AI to fit the world and where we live and everything else. And my question to you is, what's the correlation between robots and AI and making video games kind of thing, in terms of kids and how they can get involved with STEM and all that kind of stuff,
Oh, learning robotics versus learning game design, or? Yeah,
just in terms of because I know that I'm going to kind of throw in a ad lib here or something. Jamie was working with DeepMind kind of thing, so I feel there's more of that kind of stuff going happening, I guess, in a way. So just that whole thing. So it's more of a because my thing is the engineering aspect of what software design and game design is. There's more people who are doing programming now than ever before. So basically, before you teach somebody game design, you almost have to teach them programming, right?
Well, Construct doesn't require programming, and that's what we normally focus on, especially for kids. And for AI, there's a huge bit of a barrier to entry for that I don't know.
I understand that, but I feel the computer programming is the prerequisite to all that other stuff too.
So as someone who made the presentation Design in Game Design, my short answer is there's not that much overlap in programming and game design. I think that is a complete misunderstanding from the public understanding of it. So I apologize, Frederika, for taking
I'm just having a little trouble hearing because of the air.
Yeah.
Sorry. Oh.
So my understanding, if correct, is you can make a game without any computer programming knowledge, right? Mm-hmm. That's the part that I miss. Okay, thank you.
Okay, yeah. You do not need to know any kind of programming to make a game, and you can. I mean, if you're on a team, you don't necessarily need to know game development or development side of things at all. It does help, I think, but it's not necessary. I think Construct is really useful. That it does actually kind of show some of the logic that's involved with programming. So it's a good introduction for kids. Anyone else?
I got one more.
Oh, yes.
What is the future of teaching games? Like, where do you think the trajectory is going into the future? A quick.
Here?
Yes and no. Like,
Like
just
in
in
general?
general, yeah. Where do you think the future of teaching games is going? Especially since nowadays we have these like super easy to use tools. Do you think that's only going to get easier to use? Do you think platforms like mobile is going to be more popular? Do you think there's going to be more VR games and people are going to be teaching how to make VR games, etc., etc., etc.?
I feel like tools are probably going to get easier to use with time. I think that's very likely. In the more immediate future, I'm seeing a trend towards interactive narratives.
No, that's cool.
Yeah. So just a little bit of an uptick in the interest in that area. So from what I've seen prior, before it was always construct. We've actually been asked to teach Ren'py at Rise High. So yeah, I think the tools are probably going to get easier. I mean, it's all about making things easier to do. Yes.
Scratch is also becoming popular, from what I can
Scratch
tell.
is also incredibly popular. Also, I'm running into more kids, and it may be because of us, that say, "Oh yeah, I've heard of Construct too." So, but yeah, a lot of kids know Scratch.
They're using it at school as part of their curriculum or as an after-school activity.
Yeah, we've also had some Girl Scout programs come here, and Scratch was their way of getting their computer programming badge.